The maid stood frozen. Her hands still smelled of bleach, but her uniform, already shoved into a plastic bag like it never mattered. "Pack your things. You're done," the house manager snapped, voice sharp enough to cut glass. It echoed across the marble floor, slicing through the silence of the grand estate. She opened her mouth, just slightly, but the glare she got in return shut it again. No explanation. No discussion. No dignity. The chef turned his back. The butler stared at the floor. And the gardener pretended he didn't hear. Like she didn't exist. "I said go," the manager hissed, stepping closer. Clipboard clutched to her chest like a badge of authority. "People like you never last here. You're lucky we even let you in." She picked up her bag. Slowly. Mechanically. Every step felt like her shoes were made of stone. The front doors creaked open. The cold rain outside smacked her face without apology. It was as if the mansion itself was pushing her out, one final insult. And then tires. A black car glided up the driveway, tires whispering against wet stone. Out stepped a man in a tailored suit. Immaculate. Composed. But his eyes were burning. He scanned the scene. The discarded uniform. The trembling girl. The stunned staff frozen like statues. His jaw tightened. Then he spoke. Low, cold, deadly. "Why is my daughter standing outside in the rain?" The clipboard hit the ground. So did every assumption in that house. Because the maid they just threw out? She owned the place. She was always the first to arrive. Before sunrise. Before the staff chatter. Before the mansion even woke up. Hair tied back. Eyes focused. Movements quiet. Practiced. Invisible, like she trained her entire life to take up less space. Her name was Camila. She never corrected anyone when they called her girl instead. Never argued when her paycheck was late. Never flinched when the manager's voice turned sharp. She just scrubbed, swept, smiled. The guests never knew her name. The staff barely remembered her face. And yet she was the one who polished the chandeliers they dined under. The one who lit the fires that warmed their evenings. The one who made their luxury feel effortless. But to Miss Hargrove, the estate manager, Camila was just a number on a schedule. A pair of hands. Replaceable. Disposable. Miss Hargrove ran the house like a kingdom. Everything had to bow, to her tone, her timing, her taste. Her heels echoed like a metronome on the marble floor. Her lipstick never smudged. And her rules, unwritten but absolute. Camila broke one by simply existing too quietly. "Don't lurk like that!" Hargrove had once snapped as Camila passed through the hallway. "This isn't your home. Don't float around like you own it." Camila had only nodded. She always nodded, even when she overheard Hargrove brag about her flawless staff control to wealthy guests. Even when the other maids whispered about who was suddenly let go without cause. Everyone feared Hargrove's clipboard, because once your name was crossed out, you didn't get a reason. You just got removed. Camila knew this, and yet she stayed quiet, not because she was weak, but because she was watching, because she knew something no one else in that mansion did. She knew her last name belonged on the deed. The morning after the firing, the mansion buzzed like nothing had happened. Silver trays clinked. Laughter echoed faintly from the breakfast parlor. The smell of imported coffee drifted through polished halls. But the air was off. Camila's absence was a gap no one wanted to mention except Miss Hargrove. She stood in the center of the kitchen, arms folded, eyes scanning the staff like a hawk circling over prey. "I want this place spotless," she barked, snapping her fingers. "The new investors are arriving tomorrow. No excuses. No sick days. No drama." The other maids nodded quickly. No one asked about Camila. Not even the ones who'd shared whispered breaks and silent lunches with her. Hargrove caught Maria, the youngest, pausing for a second too long near the storage closet. "What?" Hargrove spat, stepping toward her. "Don't tell me you're one of those bleeding hearts. That girl was lazy. Quiet, yes, but lazy. You know how people like that are." Maria blinked, swallowed, said nothing. "You work hard, you stay. That's how the world works," Hargrove continued, her voice rising. "I don't care what sob story she had. This is my house to run." She always said that. My house. Even though everyone knew she wasn't the owner. She was just the gatekeeper. And now, without Camila around to absorb the cruelty in silence, Hargrove grew bolder. She nitpicked the ironing, yelled over a fingerprint on the stair rail, made the gardener replant the roses twice. Control made her feel powerful. Until a new car arrived. The same sleek black one from yesterday. But this time, it didn't just park, it stayed. Inside, the owner's son had returned. Unexpected. Unannounced. Hargrove plastered on her best smile and greeted him at the door. "Mr. Armand, what a surprise. Is your father joining us this week?" He didn't smile back. "No. I'm here for Camilla." That name again. Hargrove's eyes twitched for a fraction of a second. "I'm sorry, she's no longer employed here. Poor performance. Nothing personal." "Funny," Armand said, walking past her without asking. "That's not what the security footage showed." Hargrove's face paled. "Footage?" He turned, calm but sharp. "You fired her in front of the entire staff. No warning. No report. No HR protocol. She tried to recover. Sir, with all due respect, she was just a maid. She's my sister." The word cut through the hallway like a thunderclap. Gasps. A plate shattered somewhere behind the kitchen wall. Even the butler looked up. Hargrove stepped back, voice suddenly smaller. "I wasn't aware." "Exactly. You never bothered to ask who she was. You just assumed." His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. His tone alone was enough to make every inch of power she clung to feel like sand slipping through her fingers. "She worked harder than anyone here. You humiliated her. You disrespected my family." Hargrove opened her mouth, but the words didn't come. For the first time in years, she was speechless. And for the first time ever, she wasn't in control. Later that evening, the dining hall glowed under crystal chandeliers. Hargrove sat rigid at the end of the table, flanked by a few confused investors who'd flown in expecting charm and order, not whispers of scandal. At the other end sat Armand, silent, fingers tapping the oak table. Then footsteps. Soft, steady, familiar. Camilla walked in, hair down, wearing a navy blue dress that fit like it wasn't borrowed. No apron, no mop, no shame. Just calm, dangerously calm. The staff watched from the hallway, stunned. Hargrove stood, half laughing. "What is this? You can't just waltz in here." "She's allowed," Armand cut in. "In fact, she's the only one at this table with full legal authority over the estate." Silence. Hargrove blinked. "What are you talking about?" Armand slid a manila envelope across the table. She opened it with trembling fingers. Inside, a signed letter from the mansion's true owner. Camilla's father. "As of this month, all estate decisions are to be reviewed and co-signed by my daughter, Camilla Reyes-Armand." The air drained from the room. That can't be real," Hargrove muttered, flipping pages. "It is," Camilla said, voice even. "You'd know that if you ever bothered to look past my uniform." Hargrove's eyes darted toward the staff, toward the investors, toward the exits. No escape. "And just so we're clear," Armand added, "the footage from yesterday, it's been sent to the family board. Every word, every insult, every order you gave without approval." Hargrove was sweating now. "This is ridiculous. You're telling me she's been spying this whole time?" "No," Camilla said, finally stepping closer. "I was listening, watching, learning." She smiled, not out of revenge, out of power reclaimed. "You always said this wasn't my home," she whispered. "But the deed has my last name on it." Hargrove's voice cracked. "You set me up." "No," Camilla said. "You exposed yourself." The shift was complete. Hargrove, once towering with authority, now stood small, hollowed undone. And Camilla, once the invisible maid, stood tall in her rightful place. The room was frozen. The only sound was the slow tick of the grandfather clock, echoing like a countdown. Camilla didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She walked to the center of the dining room, heels clicking like punctuation. "I cleaned these floors while you barked orders," she said, locking eyes with Hargrove. "I served your wine while you bragged about how irreplaceable you were. I listened. Every day. Every word." Hargrove forced a laugh, but it cracked halfway out. "I don't care what letter you bring in. This house runs because of me. You don't know anything about management." Camilla opened a folder. "Calm. Measured. Surgical. I know you've been overbilling the family account for 3 years. I know you falsified maintenance expenses. I know the landscaper you hired is your cousin, who lives in another state. Armand leaned forward. She audited the entire estate. Quietly. Efficiently. While you were too busy dismissing her as just a maid. A gasp rippled through the table. Hargrove's lipstick looked suddenly too red. Her hair too tight. The polish was cracking. I only did what I had to. The board doesn't know what it takes to keep this place running. Actually, Camilla said, sliding the final page across the table, they do now. The document had 2 signatures, one from her father, and one from her. Effective immediately, Armand read aloud, you are terminated from all duties. You are also under formal review for fraud and employee misconduct. Hargrove stepped back, eyes wild. You can't do this to me. You did it to yourself, Camilla replied. I was raised in this house. I know every corner, every name on the payroll, every secret you tried to bury under marble and wine. Her voice dropped. You just never saw me. That was your first mistake. Hargrove lunged for her bag. Security blocked the door. You're not walking out with anything that doesn't belong to you, Armand said. Not this time. Hargrove's confidence shattered in real time. The commanding tone gone. The rehearsed smile gone. The facade gone. You were just a maid, she whispered. Camilla stepped closer. And yet, here you are. Powerless. Stripped. Fired by the girl you tried to erase. She turned to the staff, now gathered quietly in the hallway. I was you, she said. Invisible. Undervalued. Ignored. But not anymore. And then, looking back at Hargrove with a final, stinging line. You polished silver. I polished strategy. That's the difference between owning a house and running it. Hargrove didn't speak. Couldn't. She was escorted out through the very door she used to command. No applause. Just silence. The kind of silence reserved for endings. Camilla stood alone in the foyer after the storm had passed. The marble floor she used to scrub reflected her now, not as a servant, but as someone who had reclaimed her place. She looked out the tall window as the last bit of daylight faded behind the hills. The house felt quieter, lighter, and yet something heavy lingered. She thought of the others, the maids who came and went, the ones who disappeared without notice, the ones who didn't have a last name on the deed or a brother in a suit to defend them. How many had been humiliated behind those velvet drapes? How many endured what she did, without ever getting a second chance? She didn't need to say it aloud, but it burned in her chest. They were never just the help. They were people, with lives, with stories, with dignity. Camilla didn't feel victorious. She felt awake, because justice for her wasn't justice for all. Not yet. She walked past the staff hallway, pausing just briefly. Some faces peeked out, curious, cautious, maybe even hopeful. Camilla gave a slight nod. A quiet promise. Things would be different now. Upstairs, in one of the guest rooms, Hargrove sat alone. No clipboard, no audience, just silence and a reflection in the mirror she barely recognized. Her eyes weren't angry anymore, just tired, just aware. She had run the house with fear. And now, for the first time, she was feeling it. The rain had stopped. The same front steps where Camilla once stood, soaked and discarded, now held her in a very different light. She walked outside, slowly, letting the cool evening air touch her face, not as a warning, but as a welcome. No uniform, no shame, just stillness and power. Beside her, the gardener trimmed a hedge. He paused, looked up. Camilla offered a smile, small but real. He smiled back. Inside, the house was no longer echoing with orders. The air had changed. Lighter. Human. The staff moved with quiet ease. No one flinched. No one rushed. Maria passed her in the hallway and hesitated. Then, almost in a whisper, "Thank you." Camilla nodded. But it wasn't just for Maria. It was for every invisible hand that kept the lights on and the floors shining, for everyone who was ever told they were just something. She walked back into the office where the clipboard once ruled. It now sat untouched on the desk. Powerless. Forgotten. Camilla picked it up, turned it over, and dropped it in the trash. Upstairs, Hargrove stared out her window. She hadn't spoken since that moment in the dining room. No shouting. No excuses. Just silence. And a long look in the mirror. She had built a kingdom on fear. And now, she had to live in it, without the crown. Camila returned to the same hallway where she'd been fired. The memory echoed for just a moment. Pack your things. You're done. But this time, she wasn't leaving. She was arriving. She looked down the long corridor, then back at the family portrait now hanging in the entranceway. Her father's eyes, her mother's quiet strength, her own face finally reflected in the place she once cleaned in silence. She didn't need applause, didn't need revenge. She had something better. Respect. And this time, she didn't have to earn it. She owned it. This wasn't just about a maid in a mansion. It was about every person who's ever been overlooked, silenced, or told they didn't belong. It was about the people who carry entire households, businesses, and lives without ever getting credit. And it was about what happens when the quiet ones finally get heard. Because respect isn't something you're given. Sometimes, it's something you take back. If this story made you feel something, if it reminded you of someone who deserves better, share it. Talk about it. And remember, behind every uniform, there's a name worth knowing. Subscribe for more true feeling stories that challenge power, restore dignity, and flip the script.